the Yoga Healer blog and podcast. Today, talking to Justin Polgar of yescacao.com. And I first met you through you and your team reaching out to me, and it was sort of awesome because you guys were like, "Can we send you chocolate?" And I was like, "That's not hard to answer." And it was great because you sent chocolate to our event. We got to share it, and it was just amazing. And then I became addicted to Yes Cacao chocolate bars, and that brings us up to date today. So welcome, Justin. I can't wait to talk to you more about your whole exploration with chocolate.
Thank you. I'm really stoked to be here, and so far it's been such a pleasure to connect with you. So, yes, of course. Happy day.
Awesome. So one of the things I really like about what you're doing with chocolate is that you're exploring it more as an educational art project than just as a chocolate bar business of, can we sell more chocolate? Can we get in the biggest distributors and get it out there? So I'd love for you to talk to us about that, just in terms of what is this all about?
Sure. Yeah, this is something that I like to practice. This explaining it, because it's definitely something a little bit different. And as I was sharing with you before, what we're doing is taking the concept, we're changing our relationship from chocolate as a candy or a treat into more of a medicine, really. And that, what does medicine mean? What is it that we're either doing or being or consuming that's bringing more harmony into our lives? So instead of eating a chocolate bar, for example, that has sugar and milk, and usually refined sugar and pretty low-grade milk, and having that being delivered right to your system, because chocolate is a delivery system. It's a vasodilator. We just decided to start putting in botanical herbs, Ayurvedic herbs, Taoist herbs, South American superfoods, essential oils, teas, flowers, like all of the top-shelf things that I'm putting in my body, and I know my friends and the things that I want people to use to help them embody themselves more and be more of an inhabitant of their consciousness. So it was an easy yes, really.
That's great. Yeah. So what I'm hearing in that is, instead of just reaching for the treat, it's more of what you're looking at is how can we really get people more in touch with ecosystems and with deep nutrients, because they're going to eat chocolate anyway.
Exactly.
So in Ayurveda, the word for delivery mechanism is anupana, and it's this, there's different anupanas. There's, alcohol is one for delivering herbs, or milk is another, ghee is another. There's these different ones. So I'd love to have you just talk a little bit more about your experience with chocolate as an anupana.
Sure, yeah. That's really the motivation for a lot of this. I used to work... most of my studying has been self-studying or putting myself in an environment. So I used to work at a Chinese medicine school, for example, and the biggest complaint that I heard was that people didn't eat their herbs. That was, all of the doctors are like, "Oh, compliance, people don't eat their herbs because," and I said, "They taste intense, doc, and I eat my herbs because I know they're good for them, but for a Westerner, it's a really big leap to the bitters, and things in this space,
yep,
which are an important part of our palate. We have super intelligent palates. So to treat all of them and to really, that's how we stay balanced in that way. And so I told these doctors, I said, listen, we should just put it in chocolate. Chocolate's a vasodilator. As soon as you put chocolate in your system, your blood vessels start to open. That's part of what feels so good about chocolate. It really activates the circulatory system, the endocrine system if you have a really high quality chocolate. This chocolate, for example, and maybe part of the reason that you're really into it, being that you're in touch with your body, Kate, and being that you're sensitive, in that way, we're using a wild cacao. And that wild cacao is sourced with 450 wild harvesters in Ecuador, and the type of microorganismic ecology that's in the jungle makes her a really resilient being. And that being has a lot of information in it from the jungle that's been untampered with. And so when that enters the body, that's also acting as a vehicle for, really, I think, for what the planet is wanting to tell us. Every every plant has its medicine. Every plant has a spirit associated with it that's whispering its message. And how we integrate that message and how much we respect it and revere it really allows the bandwidth to open. So that's, the more that I can revere chocolate and be a messenger in that way for the amazing herbs and all of the pharmacopoeias that have been handed down for thousands of years, I have an interest in keeping those alive. And we've been getting really positive response, even in the space of, I used to make custom chocolate for clients, and having people, with sleep difficulties find a balance, having people with digestion issues be able to be normal. Like, wow, how relieving is that? Dropping cholesterol, obviously. I mean, you name it, there's everything is possible, because once chocolate is a vehicle, then you have you have Ayurveda, you have Taoist medicine, this is how I like to say it. If you went to an African medicine man and you said, I want to be a better hunter at night, like I want better peripheral vision and better ability to see in that contrast, he would give you a bag of herbs to take. But if you went and asked the same question to a shaman in the Amazon, I want to be able to hunt at night, he's going to give you a totally different bag of herbs, makes a protocol. And so by investigating each of these and putting them together, we get to be this melting pot. We also have availability to really high quality things these days with both information and the actual ingredients. So it's goodness.
Yeah, that is. And there's a number of things that you mentioned that I just really want to emphasize. And one is that I notice, for me personally, the more awake I get, the more wild I want to eat. And that's, to me, a really direct correlation. And so what that has looked like for me is just basically eating a lot of the foods that are in the wilderness that are, around me, or, just really exploring then within those foods, what is happening in my palate and why do they taste so different. And I've noticed, because I've taken so many different people on these just plant walks in the hood, that it's often really shocking to people to eat wild foods. And so, just because they're so alive, there's just so much Shakti, there's so much information, and it's just like rewiring your system really quickly if you've had mostly conventional, and even like big scale organic conventional, whatever that thing is now called, type foods. Like, and we all know what we're talking about, like the big organic, almost monocrop organic type companies. It's like you're not getting that like blast of plant intelligence. You're not getting the plant spirit information. You're not also getting the drama of the taste, right? Because it's like it's all kind of neutralized. It's all sort of closer to center than really extreme.
Safe.
Yes, very safe. It feels very safe, which to me feels really dumb. Like there's not the intelligence. It's dumb. It's dumbed down. So I'd like to hear too, because I know I've had the same experience with sharing some of the Yes Cacao, that for some people it's a little too like wild. It's a little too wow, because they're so used to like really sweet or really milky or more of that, that sort of like conventional chocolate taste. So I'd love to hear you talk about the more, people that have a more awake palate and how there's a natural draw to it, and that for people that don't, it can become more of like an acquired taste. And I guess what I'm getting at too is it's like, do you tell people, because of the more medicinal side of it, like, hey, just start with like a teeny tiny piece and let your palate start to adjust, and soon you might not be reaching for the, I don't know, can we say names like green and black, or you might not be reaching for those other types of cacao?
Well, yeah, there's, and this is something that I speak on at length, especially when I'm doing product intros and product demonstrations at stores. Being in the industrial food complex, I guess you could say it, we've become very much conditioned to sugar, and the type of sugar that we get gifted with by our society is a really refined sugar that the body doesn't really know how to break down. So we're really eating for 2 inches of tongue instead of for the 5 or 6 feet of your whole body and all of your organs and your holistic health. And so it sometimes takes some retraining. And for people who are, more used to the conventional flavors, it's really just a perspective shift. It's that I think that chocolate is supposed to taste this certain way because I've always had it this way, and it's in that safe zone of this tastes sweet. But really, what people are not actually even tasting is chocolate. Most people don't even know what chocolate tastes like. They think they like chocolate, but they're really like, I like sugar. And in that way, I really come back to this place of the palate being very intelligent. And when you go and you drink a wine, for example, you're not expecting it to be sweet necessarily, but there are complexities of flavor. Same thing when you go to a really nice restaurant, or if you drink a very earthy tea, or there's so many experiences in the mouth that we have that are not sweet that we find really enjoyable. So usually it's the context that I set it up in. Like for the Dirty Chocolate bar, for example, which was the first bar that I formulated. That bar is really earthy because it has 85 minerals and fulvic and humic acid. It has shilajit. It also has tulsi, which is that's the king and the queen, which together they have a really beautiful synergy. If you're going to put the king, you should probably put the queen, I figure. And then there's also reishi mushroom in that. And then I round it out with a peppermint fennel. And so there are some sweet notes in there, but I don't want the palate to get stuck on any one flavor for too long. I want to make that meta, micro, in that continue to question, continue to explore. Nothing is static in the universe. Everything changes. So allow that discovery to happen in your mouth. And it's amazing what happens even in the way that you see the world when you start to open your palate to new flavors. And it's a lot of, like the Caramello, for example, it has turmeric and bacopa. It has lion's mane mushroom, ginkgo. It also has coriander and cinnamon. People think there's ginger in it, only because usually ginger is teamed up with cinnamon and coriander and turmeric in like a chai. Yep. But people fill in the blank. Yep. That tells me that people are brilliant in their flavor palettes. It's just a matter of breaking your patterns. So I'm hoping that that's answering your question. Basically, it's just...
Yeah, no, it really is. And I really agree about perspective shift. I think that's really the core. And a lot of what I find I've led this course, Yogi Detox, since 2002, twice a year. So I've had thousands of people go through, and that's the number one thing that happens. Is people's palates wake up. And their palate gets smarter. So then they crave nutrients. And they crave the right nutrients and the right amount of the taste that's perfect for what they're going through in this stage of growth at this point in time.
It's the body instrument. You want to feed it what's going to help it tune in, not tune out. And we're not trying to numb ourselves here. Right. Or I hope so. I encourage everyone to feel your life. You get this it's a gift. So be in your instrument, tune your instrument in, and food is an amazing way to do that. I'm sure you've witnessed, Kate, several people have that transformation. And I've had people that say, I don't like chocolate, and they'll try Yes Cacao. And they'll say, oh, that's different. And then a couple bars later, they're like, every time I see them, hey, did you bring any chocolate? Hey, did you bring any chocolate? And I think a lot of that actually is the microorganisms in the wild cacao. Because really, cacao is getting picked from the tree in the wild. It gets opened from its pod. Then the fermentation process happens. So anything that's alive is then starting to be cultured and starting to expand and develop and to mature. Then when we get to ingest that, we're putting into our body this message basically that's saying, hey, feed me more of what's wild and good. Feed me more, instead of when you're eating a refined sugar, which also has a spirit medicine, but it's kind of like, with plants that have been put into a box by humans. Even, you have the coca leaf, which is an amazing medicine in its own. If you chew the coca leaf, you can have really sustained endurance. You go on hikes, and it's an appetite suppressant. But when you have man come in and try and extrapolate this white powder out of it, white powder for sugar or for cocaine, you have this thing that's super detrimental, that has its own message that's more, it's a different type of control. It's not so much let's work together, it's more like do my bidding. Put more
totally.
in.
Well, and we've seen that so much in just Ayurvedic pharmacology in general, and particularly in India, where you have these pharmacy labs where they're just extracting parts of the plant. But then what happens is there's a lot more side effect, just like when you make a pharmaceutical drug. So now making these herbal drugs, and I'm really hearing that in what you're saying too. It's like really easy to do that with more like mass production, not living cacao, but more of the sort of the cooked down version, that you lose the intelligence, you lose the multifaceted dimensionality of the plant's intelligence. And that's what we see too with, if we take, if we extract part like curcumin out of turmeric, right, then it's like there's less of these natural balancing factors that allow the physiology to ingest the good and also to balance what it doesn't need more of.
And there's actually even there's old school ways. There are ways of creating this. There are ways of creating an alchemy in herbs. Ways that have been done for thousands of years to cultivate naturally those potent entities. So curcumin is the anti-inflammatory property within turmeric. It's what gives that really popping yellow. Now, we're not saying go in and extract the piece, in a lab. We're saying age the turmeric in a cold water extract, and then let the sun dry it by evaporate the water through and catch the water, and then restill it. There are old school alchemical ways of creating an herb so that it's more potent, more bioavailable, more in a conversation with a human being. And the same thing like with medicinal mushrooms, they need to undergo some type of temperature shift. If you just try and eat a reishi mushroom by itself, it's going to give you a much different effect. It's going to be really hard, difficult to ingest, as opposed to boiling it down for half an hour. Then certain chemical processes unlock. So in that way, there are old school ways of, that we can pull things out without doing what modern day convenience, fast, get it quick, get only what's necessary, which is actually, the body's side effects are really just trying to balance the body.
Yeah.
It's all really simple. It's super common sense.
Yeah, and it's super ancestral wisdom. There's a lot, there's so many components. So just for people who are really less familiar with raw versus cooked cacao, will you just give a brief overview of because I'm sure for a lot of people outside of cacao nibs, they don't really know if there's any other chocolate bars out there that are raw, or how this whole thing works, and if it tastes and all that.
It's very much a conversation. Raw cacao is very much an evolving, very new piece to the whole chocolate product world. I have a set of opinions based on things that I've seen, studied, read, people I've talked to, and for me, it's actually less about whether a cacao is roasted or raw. So when it's raw, that really just means it doesn't go through the roasting step. The roasting step was originally put there for flavor development, but more so as a kill step to make sure that there weren't any harmful bacteria. So if you're growing something on a farm, essentially the farmer's job is to protect the plant from invasive species, from pests, from things that are going to be interrupting the yield and the health of the plant, or the health of the plant in relationship to production. So when you have a chocolate farm or a chocolate plantation, and you're taking these cacao beans, you kind of should be roasting them as a kill step, because it's not in a balanced ecosystem. You don't know really what's happening in them. So for me, I would actually, and this is just my preference, I would prefer to have a roasted cacao if it's from a plantation. I mean, obviously my first choice is to have a wild and unroasted cacao, because that's getting me not only the minerals of the soil in the wild, it's also giving me the information from the microorganisms that haven't been killed in the kill step of roasting. You still can get the minerals from a roasted but wild cacao. Also, there's the water content. So, to be really honest, it's very difficult to find a super clean raw cacao or even a super clean roasted cacao because of the way that the market has been set up to serve so many people. I mean, even in the last 10 years, chocolate has grown so expansively, and the production is trying to keep up. So what's happening? Scientists are coming up with different hybrids like CCN51. They're coming up with different strains of cacao that are more resilient to pests, more resilient to what one of the diseases is called witch's broom, which is a really interesting thing to Google because it's this prevalent problem that's all over the chocolate world, or at least in certain areas of the chocolate world. And yet we never have any issues with that with the wild cacao because they're so resilient. So to answer your question, the only place that I know to get it is Yes Cacao. There are a few other companies that I'm starting to work with to get more chocolate here. I know teamwork makes the dream work, and so I'm not trying to do it by myself. And so I'm stoked to have a bunch of people who get it in a way of like, I would like to be in service of the cacao rather than having flipping bars to make bucks. Yeah. For me, that's the difference between a commodity and a medicine. Cocoa being a commodity, cacao being a medicine. As soon as something gets flipped into something less meaningful but more profitable, that's losing the information. It's like how many hands touch it between it coming off the tree. And how many times has it been purchased and sold, purchased and sold, purchased and sold, as opposed to like when you walk up to a blackberry bush and just eat the blackberry off of the bush. Like you don't even have to use your hands; you can just eat it straight off, kind of a thing. And that's real connection. Then all of a sudden an insight comes about a plant that you should plant right next to the blackberry bushes that will be complementary to it. Where did that idea come from? I don't know, I would like to think that it's the intelligence of that blackberry bush, for example, saying, hey, I want some marigolds next to me. Whatever the case may be. So I'm working on it. I'm working on it. I want to get more people to have more availability of really high-end cacaos. It's happening in coffee right now. Coffee got a lot of attention in the last 8 to 10 years. Fair trade, shade grown. There's a lot of beautiful things coming out of Nigeria, some stuff starting to come out of Ecuador. And so when more attention goes and people start asking for higher quality and being aware of what's available, people don't even really know what to ask for in chocolate. What percentage is it? Like, okay, even a 70% dark chocolate, that's still 30% sugar. If you're having a 1 ounce bar, that's still like popping a sugar cube in your mouth, like a refined sugar cube.
Right.
So,
yeah, and it's so exciting to see there's so much work being done in all these different sectors coming together. You're coming more from the inner body, medicine meets ecosystem meets chocolate. I have other friends that are coming from like permaculture / business, going to like big brands that want to start to source more wild, sustainable. And it's just exciting to see that there's like, in my little circles, there's a lot of conversations that are happening that are starting to really shift. And one of the things that I found, Justin, in just branding myself as the yoga healer since 2001, which seems like a long time at this point, is that one of the most amazing things about the modern Western yoga consumer, if we look at ourselves as a massive consumer group, is we rock. Like, we love to support really good companies, and companies are paying attention to what we like. And
it's its own market segment now. Really, our dollars are really voting for things. It's true. It's very true. I'm grateful for that.
So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that and how people can, I know you were going to offer a little bit of a coupon for people with Yes Cacao for them to kind of start supporting a better chocolate. But I'd love for you to talk about it specifically, but also broader to what you're seeing with the sort of the yoga consumers.
Yeah, in general, it's encouraged when you're starting a business, and I know when you started this and you were introducing Yes Cacao, you were saying it's an educational art project. And so it's really emerging between a business and an art project. And that educational piece, part of that is knowing who you're going to educate and who is open to hearing that information. And I've been finding again and again, a lot of people I end up talking to are avid yogis. People who are really interested in upgrading their bodies, upgrading their consciousness. They're getting the relationship that what you put in your mouth is going to result with what comes out of your mouth in your words, what comes out of your heart when you're being in a compassionate space, or even just expressive, having the energy to really live alive. And so in that way, I've been reaching out more to some yoga schools, and then just this connection here, Kate, I'm really grateful for. I'm really interested in connecting with people who want to be alive, who are open and willing. There's an energetic exchange that happens as well when I'm speaking with someone who's willing and open, who's curious, who hasn't made up their mind and that's just what chocolate is, or that's just what consciousness is, or this is just what the word yes means. When I'm in a conversation with someone who's willing, there's a whole energy that comes through and can bounce back and forth where we don't know where that conversation is going to go, but we both come away. There's like an energetic currency. Sometimes it's better than drinking a coffee. You get such a more fulfilled state, and that's because we're really looking for connection. So, I like to facilitate that kind of a space. Chocolate being a vehicle not only for the herbs, but for consciousness. So people who, and that's also, just so I can speak for a moment about the Yes Cacao chocolate bars, there's on every bar, it says, make a wish, take a bite. And the invitation for that, make a wish, take a bite, is to take a moment and to pause in the middle of the day and just remember what it is that you're really here to do, what it is that you're really attracting in life. Really, what is it that you're manifesting today, right now? When you're a little kid, some of you might still be little kids, at least at heart, and you're blowing out your birthday candle. That picture in your mind is so crystal clear of what your wish is. And I just don't want people to lose that. I want people to remember how to attract that space. So you make a wish, you're taking a bite. In most indigenous cultures and most pharmacopoeias, there's a relationship between the teeth and the organs. And so as you're chewing, you're taking bites, you're really waking up that conversation between the body and itself and the consciousness, as well as the vasodilating effects, so the circulatory system starting to flow, your heart opening, the PEA, the phenylethylamine, which is the love drug, the love chemical in chocolate. All of this stuff starts to flow really abundantly as you're holding your wish in your mind. It just sounds like a wish technology that we can all be utilizing. And so, again, it's a vehicle for consciousness. I'm not saying just throw this chocolate bar in your mouth. I'm saying take a moment and remember what you're saying yes to.
I love it. And I love that reminder that's on there, that it's just part of what your brand is, and I think that's really powerful.
Yeah, for me, it's not. It's less about the numbers, even though that's totally a part of it. In order for it to be a viable business, it has to hit certain numbers.
Yeah.
And there's opportunities that come my way, and I have an availability to maybe dilute my brand or maybe change a little thing, and then I could reach a lot more people. And in the past 4 years, I started this on 10-10-10, just for a little extra magic. And I've just been taking time and letting the organic, the chocolate grow itself, the yes develop, my evolution coincide with the evolution of the chocolate, so that we can really stay in harmony. I'm not, it's not in my best interest or the interest of the chocolate bars or the interest of the consumers, really, for me to make something that can be packaged and sold with that purpose. I want to be engaged. It's a platform for conversation. I want to hear what people want. I want to hear, what is it that I can do next to deliver, what it is that's coming through me. Everyone has a gift. And so if you're sharing your gift, that's doing a service. that's doing your service, your purpose or your pure pose, same root. Be in your pure pose of what you're giving, which takes us a little bit into yesology and that platform, which is where Yes Cacao also came from. Just studying what it means to say yes in your life and living, eating, thinking, reading, everything that you're consuming with your senses, all of it, everything that you're consuming, allow it to be in harmony with yourself to contribute. It's like being in a yoga class all day, every day, in your whole life, right? Yoga just means union. So be in your union with yourself, with spirit. It's that there's a balance, right, between feeding yourself. Some people say, "Oh, that's so selfish," right? But then when you're selfless, there's an emptying. There's a balance for both. So I just say, let go of the ish and the less, and just be self. Be in that center space where it's that perfect balance where you're effortlessly giving and receiving in the same breath. So,
love it.
Yes,
yeah,
that.
And I think it so speaks to what connection economy is really all about. Like, it's a whole other. I think so many of us really grew up with just a different way of understanding economics, both energetic economics, but also just like how we transact in the world. And we can just see this whole evolution of like, that's really done. Like, if you're in that old sort of command control economy, like you're struggling. It's hard. It's not fun. You don't feel as in connection, in conversation. It's less dynamic. It's less growth oriented, and you hit walls, a lot of walls. And what I hear you speaking to and living into is my experience as well. It's like if it's all based on interconnectivity, how do I kind of get out of my own way when needed, so that what can happen through me can just happen through me, and something else happens. Something else that I couldn't have figured out. No way.
Yeah, not here at least.
Yeah.
It's always coming through. And people ask me too, like, how did you come up with this idea sometimes?
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it, I was very much just like, I was just saying every morning, I only do what I love, and just being available for what was going to come through. And so I don't even really think it was my idea. This is actually something that, like 500 years ago, if you were eating chocolate, you were eating it because a medicine man came to your village and was grinding up herbs and using it as a vehicle. And that, whatever that channel, that consciousness came in, and when I was just open at the right space-time, that came through, and I was like, aha. And so that aha, I could say it's mine, but that would be, I think, diverting it a little bit. It's like,
right.
Everyone has that space that they have. You can open up and say, I'm willing to I do thy bidding, Lord God, Supreme Consciousness, whatever you want to call it. It, this, us, yes, whatever you want to call it. Just being in dynamic dance, and magic comes out. Why wouldn't you want to just live in the magic? It's so much fun, especially because that's where true security is.
Right.
Attaching yourself to the thing that is unshakable. I've been on this planet for 32 years, and how many times have I seen even just the U.S. economy get shook enough to know that, like, I don't know if I want to put all my chips in that. No.
Right.
But yeah,
I want to diversify.
What's that?
I want to diversify.
Yeah, there are lots of eggs, lots of baskets.
Yeah. I love it.
And I want to make it easy for people, especially people who are, in the Bay Area right now. I'm in Oakland right now. There's 40, we're at 45 stores actually between Santa Cruz and Tahoe, where you can get Yes Cacao, which is awesome. You can also ask for Yes Cacao at your local health food store and such, but just a lot of times an easy way is to just pop online. I know people don't like to pay shipping, so what I want to do, at least for your audience, Kate, is just say we'll post a coupon code, probably like Yes Yoga Healer or something like that, and it'll be free shipping, and investigate yourself, and let this be a tool, and make a wish, take a bite. Very important.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. I'm really glad to be able to, just get my peeps trying your, just exploring this and really noticing what happens. And then we'll continue the conversation. And I would love to also have another conversation more for the Yoga Healer Business Course at some point. Just about a lot of this like deep alignment and the connections that come when we're in alignment with a greater sense of what's possible, not really necessarily knowing what that is. Because I know for me that's been a huge part of what's happened for me since 2001 with this whole ride, and I think it'd be a great conversation. This has been a great intro to you. I'm so glad, Justin. Thanks for taking the time. Caught it.
Hey, so great. I always do that. So good. That's awesome.
Right back at you.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, very much. It's such a trusting game. So yeah, I'm totally down for this conversation, and as well, I'm pretty active in the social media space, or even just online on the website. If you shoot me over a question, if you have any questions about the herbs, about how things came together, I'm always available. That's what I'm here for. That platform. So
great.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, namaste and have a lovely day.
Bless you. Yes, you.
Thanks.